Hello everyone and welcome back for another video. Today I'm joined by the Freeroll, aka my good buddy Cobra, and today we'll be doing a twofold part video where one, we're going to be going over the patch notes of 0.21, the next patch to arrive over at August 29th, the first big patch on the closed beta for the parallel TCG.
Definitely excited to dive in today, buddy.
We're not going to be going over the small details like, UI, UX refinements and stuff like that. I want to go into the meat and potatoes, talk immediately about the changes. And well, they first have Augencore, since I believe they're going by alphabetical order. And, Augencore are like my delight. The OTK Jurik Juggernaut deck is my favorite. And when I saw these changes, I was very, very saddened. I was angry even, but let's take it step by step if you don't mind. And let's talk about what they think, which I think is important. Because as I said before, when it comes to game balancing, I think games, especially TCGs, live and die by how the game designing team balances the game. It's very, very important. And you have to take consideration what I've called the 4 points, which is player experience, what the people talk about, what the general community talks about, pro player experiences and thoughts and opinions, which is also a very big minority because they have a loud voice due to them being so important because people love seeing pro play. Stats that come from just the game itself are super important because nobody can have all the information. And then for the devs themselves playing the game and seeing what's wrong and what's right and knowing what the next expansions have in store for us. So it all comes together to create the best game. And I just wanted to go into the correct direction. And with that intro, sorry, Cobra, was a little bit long-winded. We'll get into Augencore. So Arak Combat Overseer cost increase from 5 to 6. Now, for me, this doesn't really matter. I don't think Arak was the issue as much as he's passive with a combination of very low energy cost upgrades and very strong low curb units. But what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I mean, Iraq was definitely one of the more viable paragons for Augencore. They've slowed him down a little bit, but I think you're right. The cost to play Iraq going from 5 to 6 is a very minor, and I don't think that really does a ton to change things up for this deck.
All right. Then for enhanced blueprints, I would say nothing substantial. It's just an okay card. Sometimes maybe it's useful. I don't see a lot of usage for it, but putting the remaining cards from the top of the deck to the bottom is whatever, nothing for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I mean, overall, we see light changes to Augencore, right? And they said that the data says they're in pretty good shape. That kind of lines up with my experience. I'm not playing Augencore myself, but I run into plenty of Iraq decks, plenty of Juggernaut Workshop decks, and they seem to be in a pretty fair spot. So I think I agree that they didn't need a lot of changes here.
That's interesting because I find it very weird that they take Augencore as an early aggressive deck and playstyle, while I would always consider Augencore to be a mid game level deck that has a lot of utility. And now it's just an aggro deck that's just not as good as Markolian or Kathari. So it's just like I don't see how it's in a good spot when its only saving grace was when you reach that late game with a Jurik Juggernaut at 7 energy. If your opponent didn't have a defender, you won if you played your cards right. So you stabilized or you did enough damage in the early to mid game, and then you just win late game. But now they apparently think it was too strong and they make it cost from 7 energy to 8 energy. And I mean, making it so it only lasts a turn, I think it's absolutely fine. I always thought that's how it was supposed to be from when it was concepted, because it is too much to have it for 2 turns because it's a OTK, it's a 1 turn kill. But getting it from a 7 energy to an 8 energy means it's so incredibly difficult to win now. You give so much extra time with an extra turn to your opponent to put up a defender, to kill you if they're a Markolian, to stabilize if they're Shroud or an Earthen. It's just such a bad change for me. I really dislike it.
Yeah, so you know, 7 to 8's a pretty key change, right? It doesn't seem like it's adding a lot, but you're right that seventh turn is really important. With my Markolian decks, which are trying to go fast, seven is the most common turn for ending the game.
Yeah, I noticed. We'll
So
get into
you're
that.
yes, I mean the Augencore players are going to have to, you know, they're going to have to work to try and extend the game a little bit longer if they're reliant on that jury rig juggernaut. That said, though, when you get to turn 8, I think that's when things really turn for any aggro deck. If I get to turn 8, I tend to expect to lose. Uh,
Mm,
because that's where a lot of the Markolian decks start to lose steam, right? If you've played really
true,
fast,
true.
you've played a lot of cards at that point. Uh, my deck doesn't even have any 6 energy or above cards in it, so it starts to fall behind. And I think that's what Augencore is going to have to do against Markolian decks. Against everything else, though, I mean, I think they're in pretty reasonable shape. Getting
I would disagree here. I feel like Earthen were already really strong, and
yeah,
I think people are lying to themselves that Earthen isn't strong. People are just enjoying so much Magic Space Dark Aliens called Shroud that they and Shroud have a natural, incredible advantage versus Earthen. It's unbelievable if you think about it, and that's why Earthen have been suppressed. But now that Earthen have been getting buffed and are gonna get even more buffed, I feel Augencore have no place in the meta for me. No place. Even Kathari have more place in the meta than Augencore for me, to be honest.
yeah,
May mm,
yeah. I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm definitely putting Augencore behind Earthen and Markolian right now. Uh, and Shroud is always in there as well. I, I,
Shroud,
I do
yeah.
I do think the top of the leaderboard is going to be Markolian and Earthen with
Mm,
Shroud mixed in there. Uh,
yeah, the
because
trifecta always.
yeah, I think those are going to be the three top choices for the most competitive players right now.
Mm.
That said though, I'm interested to see because the Augencore didn't really get a lot worse. I wasn't I've yet to have somebody finish me with the jury rig juggernaut. Um, and it can still do the other things it can do, right? So um I don't think that you've got no chance with Augencore, but I have to be honest, I think it is a step behind now.
Yeah, we shall see. I still will, try to make some competitive decks with it because I still believe you can do some interesting stuff with upgrades, but just comparing it feels like a little bit of a lost cause. But we'll see. Maybe I'm going to, maybe I'm too depressed about it. But we'll just skim through unfair advantage. Selection of the enemy you no longer consider targeting. I think that's just a coding error or some coding problem they had. They changed this to so many cards. I would think it's coding. Do you think it's like balancing issue?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure with with that one. That wasn't a card I was seeing come up very often, anyways. But maybe it will more now.
All right, and then machine learning, the same changes unfair advantage, and we'll move immediately into Earthen just to go a little bit faster. So Earthen took some time to find its footing, but end up the previous parts with a fairly strong archetype. We are putting a bit more strength there. And do you have a strong opinions on Earthen? Do you want to take it from here?
Well, Earthen's a fun one because this is the hard counter to my deck. So, Earthen's I always found Earthen to be tougher, but that is partially matchup based. I was quite surprised to see Earthen getting buffed.
Mm.
The Crimea Conduit was already a really good
Oh,
card. It's even better now. The Rhetorician is better now, and the one thing that I'm most interested in here is the way that Dauntless Axeman interacts with Gafar. They didn't address it in these patch notes at all, so perhaps everything is working as intended. Um,
did you believe there was a bug with it?
well, I don't know. I heard some people talking about the buff on entry, right? Because the Axeman comes in pacified. And
Mm.
right now, there definitely is a
Interesting.
bug because it doesn't always trigger on entry.
That is true. I've noticed that as well.
So, but I've not seen the team,
Mm,
specifically address what the
interesting.
bug is. Like, is it supposed to do that? Is it not supposed to do that? Um, you
I
know,
mean, it's that's specifically just a coding thing. It's like it depends if the code says that unit enters field, unit gains pacifist. If that's the coding, then it's working as intended. If the coding is that it has pacifist, so it doesn't gain it, but they coded it the other way, then that's why it doesn't do it sometimes. It's very
yeah,
funky for sure. But just
yeah,
go through the changes real quick. So now revitalizing growth can heal any target for 5, which is, I mean,
better.
I don't think it's a big change, but
Nah,
whatever. It's not bad. Soleil, just the coding problem. Rhetorician. Oh, yes. Rhetorician is very interesting because now it says active cost change from wasting a bank card to spending 2 energy. So Rhetorician makes it so that friendly units lose pacifist this turn. And, you used to be able to waste a bank card so you can roll through your bank a little bit more efficiently, get the double draw. Now it's 2 energy. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if it's gonna make too much change because people play the other card that says all units ignore pacifist. I don't remember how that's called. I know
yeah.
the art though.
I
It,
think this is the preferred way to do it now. Now, granted, I'm not running Earthen, but to me, spending 2 energy is nothing. And
yeah, for sure.
uh,
Especially if you think about the ramp in Earthen.
yeah, but you could still use the other one because it was just revealing banked cards to prevent your opponent from getting extra energy. But this one, I think works nicely. Either way, wasting a bank card is a bigger cost. So I think we're going to see Rhetorician a bit more often now as well.
Interesting. Okay. Life Vault changed from start of turn to activate ability. This makes it a tad bit better, but after a nerf to its combo card, which I don't remember how it's called. It's the guy in the stars that's touching a star in space. Don't remember
Yeah,
if you. That puts the it was used to put your waste and both players' waste back into their deck. Now it's like only your enemy. So Life Vault doesn't really have a spot right now. I don't think it will have for a long time. And the huge change that you talked about, it is Premier Conduit. So now it gains Shielded as well. So instead of being just a big defender, it's a big defender with Shielded, which immediately puts it in one of the most powerful tools for Earthen, as it can fall in any point in the game.
yeah, yeah. It's a really really nice card because it uses all of your energy, and that makes it really flexible to play at any point in the game, early or late. Now that it gets a shield too, it's just that much harder to remove. Which I think they did to balance out the fact that late
Shroud
game.
exists.
Well, there's Shroud. I mean, yes, but also Black Market Fixer is
Oh, true.
such an
Wait,
easy answer.
that's right, because Black Market Fix cannot go through the shielded. You're right. Yeah.
No, Black Market Fixer does go through the shield, um,
Oh,
which I think made
wait.
it too easy to
Oh,
remove.
sorry. Right. I was thinking about the Markolian card that says abilities can target it. My bad. My bad. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. So this, the Primea Conduit gets a little bit more difficult to remove this way, which I think helps balance the fact that it's so easy with Black Market Fixer.
Okay.
That's what it seemed like the intention here was,
Yeah.
but either way, it's a good card, got better.
And then on Student of Susanna's, it goes from getting +0, +1, +1, +1. I did use this card a little bit. I think it's kind of cool as a change. I don't know if how much more playability it's gonna get, but we'll see. So let's move to everybody's favorite nerfs. My God, thank God they did. Like when I saw the Kathari nerfs, I was so ecstatic. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I just bought all the cards to run this deck. uh and didn't really get more than a couple games in before it got nerfed. That said, I'm still happy. They
I I told you I've played hundreds, maybe not hundreds, but more than 100 games versus Kathari, especially versus Mr. Kavax Kathari and Brazes and everybody top tier players. And oh my god, what a miserable experience to be alive versus that deck. Oh my god, they played a 0 cost artifact. They put the artifact appraisers at 3/3s. They had a 1/1 every single turn that they were cycling through. They get the gamma, the reliant gamma to get buffed. So much tempo, so much utility, and it was absolutely unstoppable. As I've talked about in my videos so much, the Kathari core was just unstoppable with those insane changes. It's still really good, but it's just not what it is. I still believe there is a spot for ATO and Gneus to exist, but we'll just have to see if they can be compared to the new Markolian and Earthen and a little bit of Shroud Trifecta era. But
Yeah.
let's see what the dev said, which is we found Kathari to be overperforming a little so far. So we're turned down the appraiser opening along with realigning a few key pieces of them. So the most important thing is that Scipio's clones now from 1-1 are 0-1. They're still useful, as you did a very nice post on Twitter about how you can still use them. And I wholeheartedly agree. And that's going to be in the comments down below on the video. Yeah, so Cunning Scipion now doesn't have the requirement to bank a unit for it to create 1/1s. I think that's absolutely fine. I think it was a weird requirement either way.
Yeah.
Didn't make too much of a difference. Archivist Pride no longer wastes a copied card. So this says add 4 copies of a target-friendly banked non-legendary Kathari unit to your deck. This used to waste that card. Now it doesn't. So this is a great tempo play, and I think there's some very interesting combos that you can do. It might not be top tier, but it might be fun tier, you know?
Yeah, the Archivist Pride is an interesting change because I honestly didn't realize that was a change. It has actually listed this as the function on the website for at least a month now, since before the beta started, but it was not the same in the client. So every time I thought about the card, I was thinking about it working the way it now does. So this is kind of a non-change for me, but it is a good change. I think wasting the banked version was weird before. So this card's definitely usable now. We'll see if it's going to be more common in Kathari decks, but it's much more usable for sure.
Then the Maritus change is just on the coding front, doesn't really matter. The Valerusi striker change, now if you control 2 Valerusis, each has +1/+0. If you control 3 Valerusis, they gain +2 and evasive. Doesn't really matter. They only use this card to pressure a little bit early on the Markoli and trigger Happy Troopers or some other units. I don't really think it matters. People it's okay. It's whatever.
It used to only have it on attack, which is kind of an awkward mechanic. So I think this is a bit better, but again, not a major change.
A very interesting change on the Antius forecast. Now, did you definitely? I don't know if it was only on the gray box, but maybe it was on the alpha that you could use Antius forecast to utilize your Otius, so you can get his copies. Did you catch that at all?
I didn't play the gray blacks. I didn't get a chance to do that. But
yes.
But yeah, they've changed it again.
So now they removed its cost restriction and changed from the Kathari unit to clone unit, which is a very interesting wording. It makes it so that you can't even use all Kathari cards, only the clone cards. So I would have to really dive deep into a deck building session to see where this would be useful. But I do feel that you may find some cool usages for Antius forecast from now on.
Yeah, this is the one that I'm not entirely sure how it's going to play out once players get their hands on it. But you're right, it's more interesting now. So we'll see if some smart players come up with some cool ways to use it.
Then one of my favorite type of cards and archetypes, Eye of Gali, which is to utilize your enemy's deck for yourself. I really love this. It says, draw the top card of the enemy deck and reduce its cost for 2. If that card is a unit, it's also a clone. I love this change. I love Eye of Gali. It was never really viable. Now I'm going to just make a mean Kathari deck just to utilize Eye of Gali. 100%.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's going to be really, really fun. But I can imagine some really crazy scenarios where you steal a big unit from your opponent. It turns into a clone, so it still triggers all your buffs.
Yeah.
I mean,
like imagine versus Markolian and Earthen just getting that like big unit or a Jurik Juggernaut, some stupid stuff.
Get a clone Lancer tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's be funny.
Then you have the nucleotic synthesizer chains from cost from 0 to 1. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Oh my God. Really needed these chains. And there's also a change to the appraiser in the
Yeah.
universal, which we'll go over, but this was a super needed change. I
You
hate
know,
zero cost stuff.
you know, the thing about this one is I think it's sneaky a buff, right? It seems like a nerf for sure. And it is, right? The not having the zero cost relic and taking away that insane artifacts appraiser combo is definitely a nerf. But
Okay.
the synthesizer also got better because now you
You have a
act,
choice.
yeah. So one of the really the only major problem that Kathari decks would run into before was if they got too low on cards, then the synthesizer stops being useful. And because
True.
you have to have something in your hands to swap when you're doing the banking. And so when I was playing it, part of this was just not playing the deck optimally,
Yeah.
but you'd find yourself in spots where you could pull the combo if you just had one more card in your hand,
Hmm.
but you're missing it, so you don't. Then you have to decide like, oh, do I try to bank an effect this turn instead so that I don't trigger the synthesizer so I can trigger it next turn? Just not a fun decision to have to make. Now you can just ignore it.
All right. Yeah, and you have a point there, and I agree with you. I still feel like it's an overall nerf to their power because it no longer have that opening, but having the choice makes it a lot better for high tier players for sure.
Yeah. So I mean the opening is a big nerf, but it's mid game. I think it's more useful now that you get to activate it yourself.
Mhm. Then we go to Drusian Exorator, which goes from 5 cost to a 6 cost. A very good change. The card was absolutely insane. Like nothing
Yeah.
else to add there.
I think with this one, we're just gonna see everybody take the X-Rater out and put Crew Boss in instead. Uh,
Probably. Yeah.
yeah, at least for two or at least one or two of them.
I
Because
still think you would go one Drusian Exorator,
yeah,
maybe just
I
have it in.
I think that's what I'm gonna do is one
Mm,
X-Rater and two Crew Boss instead of three
makes
X-Raters.
sense.
Because the Crew Boss can buff more units too. So
Mhm.
plus now it's cheaper, it's a bigger unit. I think that's probably a bit more useful, and you don't have to change the timing of your combos.
True.
You swap that in.
And then Galen Recommand. Which card is that? Could you remind me? Is that the one that you create a clone that you either copy the abilities or power and health of a?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. It's a cool card, a little bit more costly. Just gonna slow the deck down a tad, but
Yeah,